Brotherhood. Welcome to this episode of Uncommon, the Dad Work Podcast, episode something or other. I'm not quite sure what number we're on anymore. But I'm going to say something here that the combination of words, the letters, the sounds might make you uncomfortable. And that's good. Pater, father, archon, ruler, commander, chief, captain, patriarchus, the chief, the head of the family, patriarch, father, leader, the father who leads, patriarchy, structure of father leadership. Ooh, that last one, patriarchy. That one's scary to some people. Because somewhere along the way, we've forgotten what that meant. We've forgotten what it called us to. It's been turned into this big boogeyman. And maybe somebody made sure that we forgot. I think it's time that we bring back the patriarch. And I think it's time that we reestablish true patriarchy. And I know you might be looking around you right now to see who hears that I'm listening to this. Patriarch. I can say it. Maybe I'm going to urge you to say it right now. Patriarch. Some people will shiver. Some people will feel, fuck yes, when they hear that. And some of you are looking around right now to make sure your wife or no one at all is listening to this. You're like, I'm going to get this on my headphones. Patriarch. The word, the role has been weaponized, turned into a slur, a derogatory dog whistle, something to induce shame and fear, that same feeling in your belly, that reason why you're looking around right now and like, maybe I should put this on my headphones. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not afraid of it. Most people should feel protected by it, actually. And some people should most definitely feel fear when they hear that. The wrong kind of people. Patriarch, the man, the husband, the father who leads, the man who goes first into the darkness, into the unknown, into hard conversations, into the work that nobody else wants to do. In body, in mind, in emotions, in money, in marriage, in relationships, in faith, in fatherhood, and leadership. Patriarch. He is the standard bearer, the culture setter, the leader of his home, the man whose internal state becomes the water and the weather of every room that he walks into. In ancient Rome, pater familias, not just the head of the household, but the spiritual, the moral, the physical, the financial guardian of everybody underneath his roof. He didn't just provide, he presided. He wasn't just present, he was leading. This is Zeus energy, not the petty, reactive, philandering Zeus of pop mythology. And let's be straight, Zeus did some questionable things. Most of it, if not all, of the Greco-Roman pantheon did, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Zeus energy, the energy of the king. Within the word king itself says kin, makes really clear what he's supposed to stand for. King, not because he's the most physically powerful, dominating, fear-inducing, but because he holds the vision. And in his creative potential, he has the power through his labors and that vision, holding them together to bring that vision into reality, not just for himself, but for his kin. Setting the standard, leading from the front, taking full responsibility for whatever happens behind him. Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette map this man out in king, warrior, magician, lover. The king is the central archetype, the one that orders all of the others, the one that orders a man's life, his marriage, his children, his family, everything. Without the king, the other archetypes run wild. The warrior may lose his heart and become rigid, unforgiving, harmful, A warrior without a king to serve, a mission, a vision, becomes a mercenary. The magician may lose his heart and his compass and use his knowledge for personal gain, manipulating his way into personal gain and using his intellect to keep others down and beneath him. The lover, a man's fire, becomes an addiction to what feels good, to pleasure, to comfort, to experience above all else. He's the dopamine chaser, chasing one peak experience after another. And anyone that gets in his way be damned, never getting to the depth of relationship and really living that he really wants. And the king is the one that holds all of that in order. When a man begins a family by marrying a woman, when they bring a child into the world together, he accesses the archetype, the role, the blueprint of the patriarch, the father leader, not only holding his own inner kingdom in order, but balancing the health and well being of his entire kingdom. Kin, again, king, dom, doom, responsibility, that which he is a steward of, his wife, his sons, his daughters, and how they interface with the world beyond the four walls. That's the structure that he provides. The blueprints, the way. As men, we used to have initiations to awaken us to the responsibilities and the way of embodying the patriarch, of operating with Zeus energy, of holding those within our family unit in the highest and serving them in the spirit of sacrificial leadership, serving their health, their hearts, and their well being above all else, even when it's uncomfortable at times, even when we don't want to, even when we're tired and they're not pouring back into us, no matter what. And the thing that is that about a man that's serving as the integrated patriarch, as soon as he fails to embody that sacrificial leadership known as Zeus energy, he loses his mandate as the leader. Look at the Chinese emperors, for instance. They always had the mandate of heaven until they didn't anymore, until it was withdrawn. And yes, there was some superstition around that, but that's what this is. That's what the patriarch is. That's what a king is. That's what a family leader is. And as soon as he abdicates his responsibility, he loses his role as the head of the family. The integrated patriarch holds everything together, not just his own life, not just his wife or his children, but all of society. Look around the neighborhood around you. Look for trustworthy men who you could call not just to fix a tire at 11 p.m., but if the shit was going down and you needed to protect the neighborhood, that you could call. Go out to the coffee shop, maybe Starbucks, maybe it's Stomping Grounds, which is right by me, and get your coffee. And how many of those men would you feel confident in calling to your aid or stepping up and aiding him? I know that you probably would, listening to this. These are the men that we've lost. It's hard to look around and find these men now. It's hard. It's hard to look around the cafe when I'm working, or around Whole Foods when we go grocery shopping, and Trader Joe's or Walmart, wherever we're at, and be like, yeah, that I would trust that guy. I know that I could lean on that guy. These are the men that we've lost. And it wasn't an accident. But I also don't know that it's this malicious conspiracy that the manosphere wants you to believe either. Conspiracy in the true sense of the word, to conspire or breathe together. Some people did conspire with the intention of bringing this about. I try to apply Hanlon's razor to most things, not to attribute to malice that which can be attributed to stupidity or ignorance or even complacence. I think it's been a fair combination of all of these things, to be honest. It's safe to say that the patriarch, the patriarchy, the embodiment of sacrificial leadership and Zeus energy beyond the four walls of our home, it's not masculine oppression. That's been lost. Like the failure of Isildur, the withering of Gondor, leadership has failed and faded. And we tend to look at the concept of an integrated patriarch with this nostalgia as some old pipe dream, that something that may have never been. and something that we long to return to, a fable. While you and I might think differently, pop culture has its own view of the man of the house. It's the model of Scott Kelvin and the Santa Claus, divorced and working so much that he doesn't have time for his own son. On Christmas, Peter Panning and Hook, working so much, missing so many of Jack's baseball games that his son would rather draw a picture of his dad falling from a burning airplane without a parachute than to save him in his fantasy, along with the rest of his family. It's Homer Simpson, it's Peter Griffin, it's Doug in King of Queens. The male characters in Modern Family, more often than not, bumbling, incompetent, racist, sexist, unable to function without a wife who's going to save him and who's apologizing for saving him. Look at what happened with Marvel. Look at what happened with Marvel when they switched. They subbed out all of the male main characters and subbed in all the female main characters who just all of a sudden had all these powers and the ability to fix all the things that the men just couldn't do. Look at pop culture. Deadbeat men, deadbeat dads, dads who babysit their kids, secondary parents, wife's other child. You know all the tropes. They sell them on the mugs at the coffee shop. Tired, worn out, and still, and I'm going to let this go after this. I took my son to see David. Phenomenal movie. If you have not watched it with your kids yet, you need to go watch it by Angel Studios. And I'm sitting there and we're watching the ads, and I haven't been to a movie theater in 15 years. So I was like, oh, wow, the trailer's okay. Let me eat all this popcorn. And this ad comes on for the movie Breadwinner that came out this year. Mom goes on a business trip, the breadwinner. And dad literally can't do anything. He can't cook, so takeout it is. He can't do laundry, so 2 weeks of brand new clothes needs to be purchased. He needs to get on the phone with her to fix all the things. It's a worship of the silent burden of the woman and the absolute, inarguable competence of the working woman, and worship of the incompetence and the obsolescence of men and husbands and fathers. The family leader is now no leader at all. He's the punchline. He's unnecessary. He's a creator of more problems. He's inconvenient for his wife. His kids, they just think he's a joke. Oh, my dad could never. How the hell did we get here? From honoring dads in the 1950s, and by no means am I calling for a return to the post-war setup or what we have constructed in our imaginations is what the post-war setup was. I think that we can do better. But what happened? Three forces. Perfect timing over generations. A slow creep. The reason why most men feel the weight of it, but we can't see what it is that's crushing us. We can't even really put words to it. We can't put words to what the invisible thing is in our marriage that's causing problems. Why we feel like we're failing as fathers and we don't get enough time with our kids, even though we've 3x the amount of time that we spend with our children compared to previous generations in the 1960s. It's like the second book of Kings. David leads, makes a few mistakes, but is faithful enough to earn the Lord's grace. His son Solomon begins well, begins to tolerate. He begins to tolerate. What's the big deal? Pleases my wives. Build the high places to burn the incense. Put the Asherah poles beneath the trees in the greenery. It doesn't become this harmless little thing. Even though he thinks it starts out like that. Let's pause for a second. Where are you tolerating these things? It's not this harmless little thing. It fractures Israel. By the next generation, it amplifies. It doesn't become this little thing. It metastasizes and grows, eventually building to a complete breakdown of the society and the handing over of this mighty people to the Babylonians. Complacence metastasizes. I could say that word. Complacence metastasizes. God, I totally screwed that one up. I'm going to leave this in here. Complacence metastasizes and leads to a collapse an eroding of everything, and then a collapse. How did we get here? One, the Industrial Revolution, 1760. Before factories, the father was the patriarch of his home in the truest sense, present, known. His children watched him work the land or work his trade to build things with his hands. They knew what he did, and he mentored them into that. He was the model, he was the blueprint, and he made sure that they had what they needed to be successful in it too. He passed down his wisdom. Husband and wife, patriarch and matriarch, working together in interdependence, working in roles that suited their natural strengths, contributing differently, but each as valuable as the other. We work together to build something greater, showing up to serve one another, to serve the children, even when we're tired, even when we're worn out, even when we don't want to. That's devotion. Then the factory came. The patriarch physically left the home, but it wasn't just physically, it was spiritually. Provider, paycheck, his worth, no longer a totally, completely, non negotiably worthy being. His worth determined by what he could produce at his workplace and how much money he could make and bring home to his children, his wife. His children, no longer around him, ceased to really know him. His sons no longer stepped into the masculine field to learn what it took to be a man. After spending 9 months in the womb of mother and the tender years in her presence, picking up everything that it is to be woman, they know woman. But they no longer received that from father. His wife no longer working in tandem with him. The interdependent home became two separate kingdoms, his sphere and hers. No longer one flesh, but two different people sharing a roof, dividing their labor. Silent burden and the invisible load. The patriarch was split, cut off from the matriarch. The things that made him successful out in the world now were the very things that took him away from his family and came between them. Secondly, the second wave of feminism, the deliberate, intentional dismantling, 1969. Now, I could do a whole comprehensive podcast on this, and I think I may actually write a book about this at some point. You can pick up many a book on this topic. My latest favorite being Feminism Against Progress by, I think her name is Mary Harrington. You can see a podcast with her and Jordan Peterson from a year and a half ago. It's phenomenal. But I'm not going to talk about Mary's work. I'm going to talk about something written by Mallory Millett. Mallory attends a consciousness-raising meeting in New York City, founding meetings of the National Organization of Women. She sat at that table and wrote down what they said behind closed doors. And you can read her article. I'll link it in the show notes here. Chairperson opened the meeting like a liturgy, call and response. Why are we here today? To make a revolution. What kind of revolution? The cultural revolution. How do we make cultural revolution? By destroying the American family. How do we destroy the American family? By destroying the American patriarch. How do we destroy the American patriarch? By taking away his power. How do we take away his power? By destroying monogamy. Real words and real mouths. Real people, a real plan. 1969. Mallory watched her sister Kate Millett become what Time magazine called the Karl Marx of the women's movement. She watched women she had formerly respected, women with advanced degrees from prestigious colleges, plan the utter destruction of Western society. Their thesis, the family is a den of slavery, and man is the oppressor. The women and children are the proletariat. And the only way to liberate women and children from this slavery is to destroy the institution that keeps them there, the family. Women's issues through the lens of communism. But this wasn't new thinking at that time. Antonio Gramsci, the Italian Marxist, said it decades earlier. You don't defeat Western civilization militarily. You infiltrate its institutions. You de-Christianize it. You remove the father from the home. You destroy the family, and the civilization collapses from within. I'm not making this up. I'm not trying to alarm you and have you running out and taking a red pill and being a conspiracy therapist and joining the manosphere. I don't want you to do any of that. I'm just relaying real events to you. I want you to have the context. You want to kill something, you remove the head. The Father, God the Father. Both of these things happened, and both of these things are still happening. And what fills the vacuum when the patriarch is gone? It's not freedom. It's not liberation. It's not equality. It's the state, the corporation, the algorithm, the adversary himself. Men cut off in their role as patriarch are easy to control, easy to tax, easy to medicate, easy to replace with a screen and a subscription service. Give him bread and circuses, and he'll be satisfied. That was the plan. Well, look around you. It worked. And then we take his daughters and we send her to college outside of the influence of him and her mother. And she comes home with a blue haircut and talking all about feminist studies and patriarchy and intersectionality and how she's going to be a boss babe, never have kids, never have a family. And this isn't me saying this. This is Mallory Millett writing this. She interviews these girls in that article I talked about. And women that she knew from 1969, full-grown adults unable to have children, regretting everything that all the decisions that they made, regretting never having a family, having nobody, alone. We send our boys into this, and our boys are not enrolling in college anymore. And they go there and they're told to shut up, stop being so toxic. You're abusive, you're aggressive, you're harmful. Anytime you go to speak up for yourself, well, you're just complaining. You don't know. And earlier on, they're shoved in schools, given medication, told to sit like little girls, so they're not only feminized, but they're effectively silenced. That's the plan. The third thing we've already talked about, pop culture's finished the job. I was listening to Adam Curry on the No Agenda podcast this last week, the Podfather, the OG MTV VJ, talking about this just the other day after Father's Day. It's like everyone around him forgot that it was Father's Day. And he noticed, as I've noticed, that really on that day, it's just us dads who are texting each other and saying, hey, man, I see you, brother. Good job. It's just that. It's just, that's it. Yeah, it's this Hallmark holiday, and we got all these trinkets and like number one dad, all these gifts and stuff like that. But that's it. You go to church and they give you a pen. And yeah, it's a really nice gesture. I didn't take my pen. I'm like, I don't need it. Give it to somebody who needs it. But dads have become this like afterthought. Here's a pen. Mother's Day, it's a fucking event, man. If you're like me, you plan for months leading up to that. Father's Day, what? Here's some socks. The Homer Simpsons, the Peter Griffins, the Archie Bunkers, the sitcom dads. That's the rap that we have, guys. That's the rap that we have. And don't get me wrong, I don't need anything from my family on Father's Day. I don't need flowers. I don't even really like Father's Day. I don't think that we should do it every year. I don't think it should be this national thing. I think we should just honor our fathers. We don't need much. I don't need much. Appreciation and honor will do. A thank you. Dad, I can't wait to be like you when I grow up. My wife, not just wanting me to be around at tasks around the house, but like desiring me. We don't need much. Solitude and some smoked meat. Add that on top of it, that'll do. This is where we're at. And they, the overarching they, it's not so simple as one person or one power, one group. They're not done with this. They will never be done with this. These are not jokes. These things, the tropes of manhood and fatherhood that we get in pop culture now and entertainment, they're not harmless entertainment. They're programming, hammered into the skull of your wife and your children, hammered into your own psyche that dad is a punchline. Mom is indispensable, but dad, he's an option. He's unnecessary. It causes more problems. He doesn't know where anything is. Actually, he's in the way. My dad could never. It's been hammered in so much that men have bought that and believed it. And enough women and children that grew into men and grew into adult women have believed it too. And this whole thing has unraveled. And there's consequences to this. Here's what a patriarchless society looks like. Not theory, not me projecting on you, but reality. With numbers. The one that we're living in right now. The men. 700,000 men a year are taking their own lives. Almost 2 every single minute. Men leading in 14 out of the 15 leading causes of death. Men dying 6 years earlier than their women, and that gap was only 1 year in the 1920s. Male loneliness tripling since 1990. 42% of men, almost half, feeling completely alone. They have no one, even if they're surrounded by the people that they love, their wife, their children. Men's median wages down 10% since 1979, while the cost of living has more than doubled. A man trying to be a servant leader, trying to sole provide for his family, earns 28% less in real dollars than his fathers did 40 years ago. In an economy that's doubled in size. Oh. We need to look at the man, and not just physical health, but his mental, his emotional health, and his relationship with money, because if he doesn't have a blueprint there, he's in trouble, and so is his family. The marriage. 50% of marriages end in divorce. 70% initiated by women. And of the marriages that stay together, 1 in 3 report low satisfaction, and 1 in 5 feel trapped. The average couple has sex less than once per week, and that's not enough for optimal health. I'll tell you that. We can talk about that in a different podcast. Pornography, a $97 billion industry, has rewired an entire generation of men to prefer a screen to their wife because, well, that woman chooses him. He doesn't have to try and decode her, driving a wedge even deeper in between them. Erectile dysfunction in men under 40 has tripled in the last 20 years, not because of physical health alone, although that's a major part of it, because of porn, dopamine dependence, disconnection between men and women, between husbands and wives, the slow death of masculine vitality, in a culture that tells them that their desire is toxic. That's a major drop off in testosterone as well, 1% a year over the past 50 years, where literally half the men that our grandfathers were. But it's no big deal, and certain part of society wants you to think that that's a good thing. It's not. Our children Children without present fathers are 80% more likely to spend time in prison, 75% more likely to experience teen pregnancy, 85% more likely to have behavioral problems, more likely to drop out of school, struggle with addiction, and repeat the cycles. Boys, especially. Boys are without fathers are growing up no model for what a man looks like, no present mentor father, no initiations or rites of passage, no elders to say, this is what we do, this is what we don't do, this, son, is your responsibility. And so they find their models on screens. I did this. Clint Eastwood, Luke Skywalker, the military man. But nowadays it's Andrew Tate. It's Dan Bilzerian. Find their models in video games and pornography and gangs and anything that gives them a sense of masculine identity, however corrupted that is. Because the real thing was never offered to them. And honestly, most adult men never possessed any real thing to give them anyway. It's not just about you as the man, it's about your kids. You're raising your replacement. Our boys will become the men that we are, and our daughters will seek out those men. The culture. Drug overdose deaths have increased 400% since 1999. We are the most medicated society, most therapized society in human history. Antidepressant use has increased 3,000% since 1990. We medicate boys in classrooms for acting like boys and put them on Adderall for having energy. We punish them for being physical. We ask them to sit and stay quiet like the girls. We feminize them in female dominated schools and then wonder why they struggle as adults. Gender confusion is at an all time high. Not because biology changed. We talked about the testosterone thing. That's very much environmental and health. We could talk about that in a different podcast, but because models disappeared for our boys and our girls. And all that they have contend with is what culture gave them and what pop culture and the media give them as well. When boys have no fathers, no masculine elders, they have no roadmap for what healthy masculinity looks like, and neither do our daughters. What it stands for. The codes that it lives by. And a culture that has spent 50 years telling them that they're toxic, they're oppressive, abusive. That culture happily offers them an alternative identity. The birth rate is collapsing. In 2023, the US birth rate hit a historic low. Men aren't getting married. Women aren't having children. Not because they don't want to, but because the conditions for family have been systematically dismantled. And, well, who would want to bring a kid into this world? Right? Maybe you thought that. That was me. My wife and I were going to live I got to make sure I get this right because I was going to say the DILF life, but that's not it. The dual income, no kids, the DINK life. We were going to do that because we watched our own parents' marriages either dissolve or just be lifeless. And then all the stories about what's happening in the world, we didn't want to bring kids into that. The economic pressure is real. How am I going to earn enough money? The cultural pressure is real. The spiritual vacuum is real. Church attendance has fallen below 50% for the first time in modern American history. The percentage of Americans with no religious affiliation has grown from 9% in 2000 to over 20% today. And at the same time as all of this that we're talking about, anxiety, depression, addiction, suicide, loneliness, meaninglessness are all at historic highs. You remove God, you remove the foundation. And everything built on top of that eventually falls. We're watching that in real time. And the answer that culture offers, go to therapy, take some meds. But it doesn't seem to be helping. If those interventions helped as much as they say that they do, I'm not going to say that you shouldn't go to therapy if you need it and you have some things that you need to unpack. But if those things helped, you would think we would see at least a leveling out of the anxiety and depression rates. The answer that culture offers is don't complain because women have it worse. Be more sensitive to her invisible load. They'll never, ever, ever, ever tell you that men should become masculine again. Not this immature masculine that has filled in the void in our culture, but truly masculine, fully integrated, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in his own health, our wealth, our work, our relationships with our wife and our kids and with God. I'll never, ever, ever tell you to do that, to take ownership, to take responsibility, and become a man worthy of leading. A dad's so rad, your wife will want to go trad. I want to make a t-shirt with that in there. But a dad that really leads so much that his wife can go, oh, she can relax. To become a man capable of serving as a patriarch. As stated in the book of Chronicles, a man who is leader of his family. They'll never say that. Because they're the wrong people. That is terrifying. The P word, patriarch. A group of patriarchs together, patriarchy. That's terrifying. The high places of Baal, the Asherah poles, the passing of children through the fires of Moloch. I'm not trying to conspiracy therapize you here or alarm you. Levels of degradation permitted through complacence. We reestablish those kinds of men, and these kinds of things will not be tolerated. And I'm not bringing you back to something that happened 3,000 years ago. I'm talking about the things that are eroding our culture now. Because complacency and too much tolerance will divide us and kill all of us. And how and why do we come back to this place? And why do we come back to the level of patriarch? We set the standard, and we hold ourselves first to a standard of husbandhood and fatherhood and family and community and moral leadership. And then we raise the next generation in the way. You raise them in the way, and when they are old, they shall not stray. I have a handful of statistics for this, but none of them is as jaw-dropping as this. A father who leads his family in faith, there's a 75 to 93% likelihood, and even if we go with the lower ones, 75%. Even if we go with the lowest one that I've seen, 55%. Doesn't matter. That's the likelihood that his children will carry that faith into adulthood when they're older. When life gets hard and all feels lost, they're going to need that. I know I did, even though I pushed against it as hard as I could and I tried to break it. I'm still wearing this. I put it back on because I needed it. A mother who leads the family in faith by herself, there's only a 15% chance that the kids will have that faith in adulthood when they need it and life gets hard. And this is not a critique on women. This is not a critique on mothers. They're not meant to lead in this way. That's not their gift to their children. That's a man's gift. That's the patriarch's gift, the one who creates the structure. The man, the husband, the father, the one who resolves to become worthy of serving as patriarch. He sets the ceiling for everything. Health, physically, mentally, emotionally, marriage, relationship between husband and wife, between father and son, father and daughter, mirrored in his kids. between father and his mother, faith, culture, all of it. Remove him and you don't lose a man, you lose cohesion. You lose generations, you lose nations, you lose everything. Now, do not hear me wrong. And I'm sure that I've already given this direction. But I'm not calling for imposed dominance. This is not a call for control. This is not a call for husbands to control their wives, to rule over their children with an iron fist, to force women back into the kitchen and pretend it's 1955, which is what some people will want you to think that I'm saying. Just listen to the whole thing. That'll tell you what I'm saying. This is a call to responsibility. The integrated patriarch embodying the Zeus energy is not the man who rules over his family with an iron fist. He's the man who serves his family through the principle of sacrificial leadership, who goes first into the darkness, who sets the standard not by demanding it from them, but by embodying it within himself. He's the model. The model isn't Zeus. It's not Aragorn. It's none other than the man himself, Jesus Christ. Not the soft pastel feminized Christ, the lamb of modern therapeutic Christianity that wants everybody to feel good and get along and sing kumbaya. Not the buddy Jesus who wants you to be happy and be nice and feel good. But the Christ who flipped the tables in the temple, driving out the money changers with a whip that he had woven himself. The one who called the powers that be a brood of vipers, venomous, devious, and deadly. He said not, I am one of the ways. You follow the way that's best for you. He said, I am the way. And he stood silent before Pontius Pilate. And because he was weak, but because he was in complete control of his power, he knew what needed to be done. No matter how uncomfortable, no matter how painful, no matter how much he begged for a different cup. He washed the feet of his own disciples, bestowed with all the power in heaven, tied his robe around his waist, and got down on his knees and washed their feet. Even when Simon Peter was telling him, no, let me wash yours, he said, no. This is my responsibility to you. And he asked them to do the same for others. And then he died for them. Strength, sacrifice, power, and surrender measured. The warrior king, the Lion of Judah, laying down his life for his friends and for the ones that follow him. That is the patriarch. Meek, in the original Greek, praus. And just drop in the comments that I pronounced it completely wrong. But either way, the word doesn't mean soft, it doesn't mean powerless, but a war horse, a stallion. All the power in the world submitted to a higher cause. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. That man, a beast, hard to kill, but measured, integrated, easy to love, devoted, a sacrificial leader, uncowed, and courageous. That is what the world is starving for. Not a tyrant, and definitely not a doormat. A man in full, hard to kill, easy to love, physically present, mentally locked in, spiritually grounded, devoted to his wife and his children, to what's right in a way that makes other men stop and think, oh, look at that dude. I want that. Just when you're standing in the coffee shop or you're in the middle of shopping with your kids. Strong. You know he can be depended on. You know that he can come through. That is what a man, a patriarch, looks like. This isn't a modern idea. It isn't a conservative talking point. It isn't a reaction to feminism or nostalgia for a time that probably never existed. It's written into some of the oldest texts that we have. Book of Chronicles, first book of Chronicles. The Hebrew, Beit Av, again, make fun of me if I'm saying stuff wrong. The father's house. In ancient Israel, father's house wasn't a nuclear family. It was a civilization in miniature. One patriarch, his wife, his sons and their wives, his grandchildren, his servants, sometimes hundreds of people under one household. And when Israel returned from exile, shattered and scattered, with no shared identity, no sense of who they were or who they belonged to, the chronicler didn't write about kings first. He wrote about fathers, genealogies, households, heads of fathers' houses. Because the nation had been rebuilt before, and they knew how it was done. It's not rebuilt by warriors and mighty men alone, not by kings alone, but family by family, father by father, family leader by family leader. The chronicler was answering the questions as who are we? Where from? Authority, author, the writer who leads, who leads. Every man has a place, every family has a head, every tribe has leaders, every leader answers to the king, and the king answers to God. Covenantal order, not chaos. This is the structure. Scripture assumes leadership begins at home. Before a man can lead thousands of soldiers, before he can lead a nation, he leads his household. The qualification for church leadership in the New Testament is the same: manage your own household well before you oversee anything else. The pattern is consistent across every era. Every culture that has thrived has known this. God builds nations not through kings, armies, and war, but by generations of families led by faithful fathers. We're broken people right now. And maybe you're like, oh, um, liberals versus MAGA. Maybe that's what you're thinking, but maybe that's what it is. But internally, we're broken people too, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We're our worst health that we have ever been in. We have no shared identity, little reverence for family, no recognition of the unarguable importance of husbands and wives working in interdependence in marriage, and the children that they raise together. We are a post exile people. And if we want better for our kids, we must become better men. But not just more sensitive men. The answer, again, is the same as it has always been. I know it, and I think you know it, but most don't know where to turn, and most are kind of afraid to say it. Becoming fit to lead, fit to serve as patriarch, as the head of a household. A man who leads his household and really leads it physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, financially, so that his household can lead in the world. I'm not talking about power, but I'm talking about being an example. People who can spread goodness and hold people that want to destroy that goodness at bay. A man devoted not to being some NPC, but honing himself into a transitional character. A man who looks at the cycles playing out in his life, in his bloodline, and around him in society and decides, no, it ends here. It ends with me. I will not perpetuate this, and my children will not be burdened with this. That man is the most powerful force in civilization. He doesn't need a platform or a soapbox. He doesn't need a movement. He needs to walk into his home and be present, to lead by example, to find his brothers. He needs to do the internal work that his father never had the luxury or permission to do, so that his children don't have to carry what he's carried. One man changes family, but multiple men doing this work together, that's terrifying to the wrong kind of people. A group of patriarchs devoted to that cause, that kind of patriarchy, we need more than that. And this is why I named what I'm bringing to you right now patriarch. Not in spite of what the culture has done to that word, but because it's time for us to take it back, to heal it, to integrate it, and to embody it, and to make its necessity indisputable. The Patriarch Summit, September 11th through 13th, 2026, 3 days, virtual, live on Zoom. Named after the one thing that some have sought to destroy, and the one thing that I and the statistics point to as the path to a better future. Because I believe a better world begins with better men leading better families. The revival of a culture, of a civilization with shared and moral values building towards a unified goal begins with the revival of family. And the revival of the family begins with the revival of the man himself and the revival of the patriarch. The revival of the patriarch begins with the men who are willing to do this work on themselves, in their marriages, in their money, in their relationship with finances, in their fathering, in their faith, and in their leadership. These are the 5 fronts that we're fighting on as men in 2026. The cards are stacked against us. And most of us weren't initiated into the responsibility and the skills necessary to thrive in these areas. I don't know a single man who doesn't have an issue that's confronting him in one of these 5 fronts. The man, that's his own internal health, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. The marriage, in his money, in fatherhood, in faith, in leadership. Most of us are afraid to lead because we're afraid to step on somebody's toes and hurt somebody's feelings or to be seen as toxic. And so we just don't. Whatever you want, let's do it. You, when you show up to this, September 11th through September 13th, are going to receive elite teachings from some of the most influential and groundbreaking men, husbands, fathers, and leaders in the world. Ryan Michler, Order of Man, Matt Boudreau, Apogee Strong, Pat Barber, The Fathers Guild and the Hero's Journey, Mike Salemi, Men of Movement, Nate Feathers, Dads Don't Babysit, and Savage, Fatherhood, Brennan Schlagbaum, Budget Dog, who took his family from, I think it was $300,000 in debt to being millionaires, and his wife gets to stay at home with their daughter. Daniel Gross, Honest Fatherhood, Gabriel Mira, Forger of Men, and myself. All men I deeply respect. All men who are living this out loud. This is not a conference. It's not a self-help weekend. It's not a feel-good virtual retreat. This is a room where the standard begins. A room where men receive the teaching, the standard, the guidance that no one else is going to give you. And doors open July 1st. That's just a couple of days away. The link is in the show notes. You might be able to sneak in now. General admission is $17. It's a no-brainer. It's nothing. And you show up and you get to get all of these downloads, all of these skills, all of this wisdom. Things that you were never given. I was never given this. VIP registration is $47. Again, a no-brainer, and you're going to get the recordings for life. You're going to get access to speaker and sponsor giveaways. You might get some really cool stuff for free from Camuso and Homegrown Fitness, maybe even Born United, We the 13th, Tango Charlie, and more than that. You're going to get to participate in live Q&As. Your questions will be answered by our speakers, with me and with every speaker, and access to the school community through and beyond the summit, where we're going to do a lot of introspection leading up to the summit. It's time we shift the culture, guys, and that culture shift begins here. This is where it starts. Pater, Archon, Patriarchus, the father who leads. The world doesn't need more passive men. Doesn't need more nice guys, more checked out dads, or even gentle parent fathers. More husbands going through the motions with the creed of happy wife, happy life, and whatever you want, honey. Or more men who have abdicated leadership to their wives, abandoning her in the process, to their screens, to their coping mechanisms. It needs more patriarchs. It needs men who go first, who set the standard physically, mentally, emotionally, relationally with his wife and with his kids, in his work and in his faith. Men who lead with love, wrapped in immense strength